February 6th meeting of the Minneapolis City Planning Commission. My name is Matt Brown. I serve as president of the commission. I'm joined today by Commissioners Kronzer, Magrino, Slack, Sweezy, Lukey-Peer, and Vreeland. Our first item of business is to approve the actions from the January 23rd meeting. I have a motion to approve those actions. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? And that motion carries. The next item of business is to approve the agenda. You can find hard copies of the agenda in the hallway. We'll sort through it and determine which items will be considered on consent and which will be discussed. So starting at the top of the agenda, item 1 is the 4,700-seater retail addition and renovation. At 4,700 through 4,714 Cedar Avenue, the applicant has requested that we continue that application to the February 21st meeting. We have continued that a few times before, so if you're here to speak on that, it will be considered on February 21st. Item 2 is at 3446 Grand Avenue South. That is a minor subdivision and 2 related variances. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation on item 2? Seeing no one, we'll put item 2 on consent. Item 3 is at 3006 West 40th Street, also a minor subdivision and 2 variances at that location. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation on item 3? So there are a few people here. We will discuss item 3. And finally, item 4 is the Green on 4th Apartments at 2901 4th Street Southeast. Several applications for a new residential building there. Is anyone wishing to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation on item 4? Seeing no one, we'll put item 4 on consent. So our agenda as amended is as follows. Items 2 and 4 will be on consent. We will discuss item 3, and item 1 will be continued to the February 21st meeting. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? And that motion carries. Next, let's move on to the Committee of the Whole consent agenda. And Vice President Slack, do you have an update from the January 26th meeting?
Thank you, President Brown. At the meeting, we considered one item, which was a land acquisition for 3100 2nd Street North. And the recommended motion was to approve the staff report that the item was consistent with the Minneapolis Plan for Sustainable Growth.
All right, and I will take that as a motion that land acquisition is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? And that motion carries. Next, we have one action item to consider today, and that is findings of fact related to the denial of the Village Market applications. That is at 2301 Elliott Avenue, 912 East 24th Street, 2218 10th Avenue South, 2320 10th Avenue South. We had denied those 2 applications at our last meeting on January 23rd, and may have a motion to approve the findings of fact outlined by staff. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? And that motion carries. Next, may I have a motion to continue item 1 to the February 21st meeting. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? And that motion carries. Next, we'll move on to the public hearing portion of our meeting. And at this time, I'd like to open the public hearing for the items on the consent agenda. That is items 2 and 4. Is there anyone wishing to speak on items 2 or 4? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing, and may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
And that motion carries. Next, we'll move on to our one item for discussion, which is item 3 at 3006 West 40th Street, and Ms. Widmeyer is staff.
Excuse me, can I make a point of information before we begin?
Yeah, if you have a question, we can.
Point of information is the current notification 21 days? Because I could not find a modification to the 21-day notification to us neighbors.
Okay, we can ask Ms. Widmeyer to clarify the process for notifying.
It's in writing, so.
I'll ask Ms. Widmeyer to clarify that for you.
Okay.
All right.
Good evening. Would you like me to clarify that question now or just go through the...
Sure. Maybe you could just outline the process for the public hearing.
Yes,
notice.
for public hearing notifications, 21 days in advance of the meeting, the notice is sent out to the neighborhood group and posted in Finance and Commerce. 15 days before the hearing, that's when the notices are sent out to the property owners within 350 feet of the site.
Okay, thank you.
So the subject property is located at 3006 West 40th Street, and this is a predominantly single-family area. The site is zoned R1. What's being proposed is a subdivision to split one lot into two lots. They demolished the existing single-family dwelling and they're proposing to construct two new single-family structures. So again, the zoning for the site is R1. In the R1 district, the minimum lot size requirement is 6,000 square feet per lot with a minimum lot width requirement of 50 feet. The proposed lots, as you can see here, are less than that. The proposed lot width is 39.25 feet, and the proposed lot sizes are right around 4,900 square feet. So the applicant is requesting variances to the minimum lot size and lot width requirements. As part of the request, they also need to ask for a minor subdivision, and that's because the proposed lot line wouldn't fall on the underlying platted lot line. So in staff's review of this, it was found that all findings were met, and the recommendation is to approve each of the applications. The factors that were considered were a number of things. Looking at the surrounding area, again, as I noted, this is a predominantly single-family area. And this site happens to be located in the Cottage City Addition. And with this addition, when the original platting was done, it was done in such a way that the original lots were pretty small. The typical lot width is 25 feet in area. So this map here is showing our general boundaries of the addition. And then here's a copy of the Hennepin County map that shows the subject site. And you can see closer up here how those 25-foot wide lots are located in this addition. So what this has resulted in is kind of a variety of lot sizes and lot widths. And so some calculations were done. We looked at the properties within 350 feet of the site, and of those properties, 41% were less than 6,000 square feet in area, and 30% were less than 50 feet wide. So a wide range of sizes here. Another thing that was looked at was if you did keep it as one lot, a much larger structure could be built here, and that's not generally in keeping with the character of this area. There are more moderately sized houses in the area. Another thing that was looked at was just the intent of the ordinance. And of course, our lot area requirements are established to ensure compatibility with surrounding uses, and also to ensure that they're sufficient in size to accommodate our zoning requirements such as parking, setbacks, and so on. So again, looking at the proposal and what's being requested here, this subject property has those smaller underlying platted lots. They are proposing to divide the site into two lots nearly the same size. Both would have alley access, and both, when you look at these in comparison to other residential properties that are developed in the city for single-family dwellings, they're very close to the standard lot size of about 5,000 square feet and 40 feet in width. So we do not expect that additional variances would be needed to develop these lots for single-family dwellings. So those are the considerations for the variances. With the minor subdivision, as I indicated, it's only needed because that lot line would not line up with the underlying platted lot line. And so we didn't, again, expect any difficulties with developing these sites. Excuse me. So that concludes my presentation. I could take any questions.
Commissioner Vreeland.
Yes, on the recommendations, it is asking the Board of Adjustment to adopt the staff findings. That should be us, right?
Because we have the subdivision application with this, All the applications need to be reviewed by this commission. That's correct. If it were just the variances, then it would just be the board looking at it.
So as we look at these motions, it should have us in the recommended motion.
Oh, yeah, so that was a typo.
Okay, are there any further questions of staff? And Janelle, just to clarify, so if they were to subdivide using that originally platted lot line, they would simply need the 2 variances. They would not need a subdivision application.
That's correct. So if they were to adjust it approximately 4 feet to the east, you'd have different size lots, of course, but then, yeah, the subdivision application would be eliminated.
Okay. All right. If there are no further questions, I will open the public hearing on this item. I'd like to ask the applicant to speak first, if the applicant or applicant's representative is here. And please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. If you don't mind coming to the center microphone.
Center microphone?
Yeah.
I have some graphics.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks. So, hear me? My name is Chris Strom. I'm the architect. I'm not the property owner, but I'm representing Syed Zai, Ghulam Kian, who are the property owners, and Nick Smaby, who is the builder interested in developing or building the project. Just as a point of reference, we have this property. It's actually made up of 4 pieces, and it's pretty wide. It's 78.5 feet wide. As you already saw this area, but little context. This is where I lived for 9 years, so I'm very familiar with the neighborhood. Nick, the builder, grew up in this house, so he's quite familiar. And then that's the site. We want to cut it in half, and there's an existing 1951 Rambler centered on the parcel in really bad condition, and our goal is to split it right down the middle. We believe that building 2 small houses would match the existing neighborhood context better than 1 large house. Because of the large width of the lot, a single large house could be up to 62 feet wide without requiring a variance, whereas the widest possible of the 2 smaller houses would be 29.5 feet. 29, actually 0.25 feet. So we did a little homework, and the point was that our proposal is appropriate for the neighborhood context. So these highlighted lots on this map are all narrower than 40 feet wide. And also, I don't know if this was mentioned, but there was a very similar proposal on nearby Thomas Avenue. Their lot is a little smaller than ours, but they were granted permission for the split, and there's now a single-family house at what is now 3933 Thomas and another at 3935 Thomas. And we look forward to hearing your thoughts. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We can move on to some other speakers now, and I know several of you are here for this item, so you can decide who goes first, and yeah, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Vaughn Rasmussen, 3939 Xerxes. I'm the contiguous property to the west on the alley. I'd like to first state that I think Janelle gave probably what is the internal procedure, but the published procedures indicate that 21 days notice shall be given, and it's on section 2 review application. So I'd like to point out that we were not given 21 days. We were given 17 days from the date the letter was sent, which could mean that we only got it for 14 days. That's number 1. Number 2, it came through conversations with us that the material that was provided on Wednesday was changed from what is being presented today. So the notice that we got was short, and the material that was posted is not what you're looking at today because there are some changes. I don't know if it's a period. I don't know if it's a sentence. I don't know if it's substantive. I just don't know, but there were changes. So I'd like to state that as a second reason why this should be tabled.
All right, thank you. And I did just want to clarify, you had referenced 21 days, and the requirement is that the neighborhood group is notified 21 days in advance. For the adjacent property owners, it's 15 days.
Could you
in
give me
advance.
that site? Because I can only find the 21 days.
I can ask
Sure.
staff to
Commissioners and
find
members
that
of the
for
public,
you.
it's 525.150 of the zoning ordinance.
So it's not in the actual process that's published for people to look up. You have to go to the code
Right, we don't repeat the ordinance in the notice itself.
because this in the application process it does say 21 days. It does not say 15 or 6 or 5. It just says the notification shall be no minimum than 21 days.
Okay, we'll look at whether that needs a little more nuance in the application to mention the fact
What it does is it affects the notice to people, how much time they have to review, get together, etc. The second point is I don't think it's fair that things get posted that people spend time on and then you look at something different. That's the second reason I think this should be tabled until a future date.
All right.
Okay, with that said, like I said, I am the second, or I am the contiguous property to the west, and I have a couple of substantive objections. The first is throughout the application, it says that nobody will be injured. I would like to point out one thing. This is a shot from my house to the property under consideration and to the property contiguous on the eastern side. Excuse my dog's head in the bottom. The concern I have is a couple. One is how high it's going to be built, how close it's going to be built. I, like 3-4 years ago, got an award for my garden, and without sun, there's not going to be much of a garden. So one of the things I would like, if you are going to approve this, make it contingent on the height being measured from the northwest corner of the lot versus the street side. Because if you take a look at sorry, I had to put them together. You can't get too far back. The gradient from the street at 40th down to the alley is at least 10 feet, which means that if you measure it from the streets level, that's an extra 10 feet of height that could go into either or both buildings, which, again, if you take a look at this, sun would be completely blocked. So I feel that I would be injured. The second thing is, because of the gradient, both from the east to the west, as well as from the south to the north, all the water funnels down into that corner, the northwest corner of the property. If 2 new buildings are built there and there is not sufficient drainage in the right direction, my property will be inundated with water. So if, again, you're going to approve this, I would like it such that you have a provision that all gutters be pointed in a northerly direction and that there be sufficient gutters and or curbs put in the driveways to funnel the water in that direction. I don't want to be faced with trying to figure out who's responsible for water coming onto my property in the future. The last one, and there's other people, so I'll keep it short. Retaining walls. There are a number of retaining walls on the property as it stands now. And here you can see It's pretty dark on the left side of the screen, and right next to the house, there are 2 retaining walls, and there is a retaining wall at the front of the house. All of these have had substantial repairs done. Again, the soil conditions are very sandy. Linden Hills was built on a bog. You have to go sometimes 45, 50, 65 feet down to get hard rock, so there's a lot of settling. So I want to make sure that there are walls put up, again, to prevent erosion and again to prevent any damage to my property. And with that, I'll say thank you.
All right, thank you. And I should mention quickly, in a subdivision request, we don't have the ability to tie that to a structure that is built there. The setbacks and height and so forth would be the same for a house that would be built on the lot as it exists today. So I do want to clarify that. And, you know,
I would think, though, that if there is a subdivision plus variances for having houses closer together, that you can make it subject to a few minor things in your approval, can't you?
No, we really don't have the ability to do that. So I do want to move on to some additional speakers. So who would like to speak next? Yes. Oh, Commissioner Lukey-Peer.
I had a question for staff. Just, Janelle, can you quick clarify what were the modifications that were made between posting versus what we're seeing today that the speaker just referred to?
It was in the applicant's statement of proposed use. There was a typo in one of their measurements referenced, so they just corrected that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Yes, and please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Guyton, and Michelle and I live at 4001 Xerxes Avenue South. Xerxes is, our house is basically right across the street from the property on 40th. I would like to thank Janelle for her time on the phone about a week ago. So that was much appreciated. The concern that I have is that the variances that are being requested